I don't see the University of Dar es Salaam participating in the CIDRA project. Dr. Dauda, Dr. Rasul, Professor Wellman, Evans, Levina. Professor, we have a lady in the team. Ms. Levina Mfuku. Also, on a special way, we have AFDD and any other diplomatic representatives that are here. Mr. Oma, members from the diplomatic corps, karibu sana. Okay, thank you very much. Now the students represented here, please also come for the memorial photo. All the students around here. You can see the PhD students up there. I know you. And all students, please come in front for the very last photo. Na ninyi muonekane kwenye magazeti kesho. Mai pale nawaona chungu na nani pale na kuona ukifiche. Maybe we have two groups. We have two groups. The first one. Okay. Maybe you should have the interaction. So I would like now to invite the members of the panel. To start with, we have His Excellency Popola, Ambassador of Italy, that will chair the session. Ambassador, please. And then we have Professor Jeronimo Gonzalez. Then we have Dr. Zemelak Ayele. Then we have Mr. Duncan Ouma from AFDD. And then we have Dr. Rasul Ahmed from the University of Dar es Salaam. Welcome, Dr. So this is our panelists and the theme that they are going to discuss. The theme that they are going to discuss is titled The European Union and the African Regional Economic Cooperations, Opportunities, Challenges, and Lessons. This is where, and having that said, I will leave now the panel session under the chair, Popola, the Ambassador of Italy. What do I see? Mike Zepps,
Hello? Yeah. Okay, brilliant. So thank you very much. I would, before giving the floor, of course, to the panelists, I would just like to highlight what also underline and repeat what I said before, remarks about the great importance of regional integration And I think that this initiative can contribute to assess the challenges and the advantages, mainly the advantages, because regional integration has especially many advantages. I think that the European Union experience from that point of view is absolutely crucial. I was born when the eastern part of Europe was not integrated because it was under the Soviet bloc. And as Pope John Paul once said, when the Eastern European countries lands. So I think this is in terms of regional integration. Of course, there are a lot of challenges, but I think that the already many advantages also communities. So I would actually give the floor of San Paolo University to share.
Here and also our responsibility. To understand the European integration. Why was it born? As you know, the European Union process was born after the Second World War, and the two main objectives were peace and stability, peace and political stability in Europe. In Europe wars, there was a huge battle between national to create something that prevented new wars in the future. And the second main, wars, but it's outside of the Union. And there is peace, and there is stability, political stability, and an expansion of democracy, and human rights, protection of minorities in the whole continent. And I think this is extremely important, an extremely important achievement. On the other side, there is no doubt as well that the European Union process has contributed a lot to economic and social progress. How was it in the 50s and how is it today? No doubt that there has been a lot of progress. And part of it is because of the European Union, because of integration. My third point relates to enlargement. At the beginning we were 6, and now we are 27. At a certain point we were 28 because we lost the United Kingdom. But there is a path from 6 to 27 member states. And what I want to highlight is that we practically have unified the whole continent under only one product. This was not easy. You were mentioning it before that until some decades ago, we couldn't imagine to unify the continent, to unify the East with the West. That we managed to profit from the opportunity in the 90s to start this, to attract Eastern countries and to unify the continent. under democracy, rule of law, human rights, and social market economy. I think this is one of the main achievements, without any doubt, of the European integration process. And it continues to be a very attractive pole for other countries which are not in. Indeed, the Union is thinking about more enlargements, 2030 and later on, with Moldavia, we will be more than 30 in a decade. That's the movement that has been relaunched very, very recently. All those countries that want to enter, they make a big effort to increase their political stability, to reinforce their institutions, to consolidate democracy, human rights, to belong to them, and also to adjust their systems, to be able to comply with all the EU legislation, and also the social market. My fourth point is, from an economic perspective, there have been two main achievements, I would say. The first one is a common market and a single market. So we have an area where there is free movement of goods, free movement of workers, establishments, services, and capital. We managed to complete this process in 1993, 1996, depending on whether we are thinking of common market or single market. It's true, with a 25 years delay from what we expected. This was attained, and I think it's still one of the stories of the European integration process. And the other one is the Economic and Monetary Union, the Euro area, which is still incomplete in two senses. First, because we are not the 27 member states in the Euro area, only 21, 6 are still out, although there are very close cooperation, of course, with all those member states. The second nuance is that it's more, or it was more at the very beginning of monetary union than a full economic union. And we are still in the process to complete that economic union. We have made a lot of progress in the last year since the financial crisis, or banking union, fiscal union. There is still a path to go. Fifth point, the union is much more than only economics. It has moved beyond economic integration. And to prove it, we can have a look at the competencies that the union has nowadays. They have grown considerably. We have, for instance, an area of freedom, security, and justice. So issues of internal affairs, justice, cooperation, police cooperation, justice cooperation, civil and criminal cooperation, but also external policy, and to a certain extent some defense issues are now competencies of the union. In these last two, it's true, still intergovernmental, but they are. Or for instance, just to mention another point, we have now a European Charter of Fundamental Rights, which is also a key. My sixth point is institutions and balance of power, how decision making has been designed. Legislative power, if we look into the ordinary procedure, we have three institutions that are involved. The European Commission has a monopoly of the initiative, legislative initiative. And then there is a co-decision between the Council, Member States, governments, and the Parliament, representatives, direct representatives, coming from elections, decided, therefore, elected by citizens. We have the executive power, which is a bit divided between the Council and the Commission. We have a very important judicial power with the European Court of Justice in Luxembourg, but also with all national courts being involved in the application and enforcement of EU law. I would say that this is a very solid institution of debate. Also from intergovernmentalism to supranationalism. We have moved from unanimity to qualified majority in many areas. Not in all of them, but in many areas. And this is extremely important, I think. Without qualified majority, all member states together. And this increases the possibilities of financing and funding with solidarity, certain targets. So you don't have to look only to the back. We have, in many cases, been complied with not only by European companies, but also elsewhere, beyond the European borders. And of course, to a certain extent, this is because participating into the single market was very attractive for those companies. So standards relating to climate change, to ecological transition, to digital transition, etc.
Because the framework is already prepared for you to go there and to spend a year, 6 months, or 2 years, no, 2 years, no, it's usually no more than that. So this is a great achievement, and it's also culturally very important because it creates a new generation of very pro-European people. And I think that's something that also could be considered also for the African aspects. So Erasmus. Sorry for this personal. Yes.
I think we have now a new stage in this cooperation between universities. I also went Erasmus, but my daughter, for instance, now is participating in a joint degree common to 5 universities, 5 European universities. So she will be obtaining a joint degree of those universities. This means that it is moving from one university to the other during the whole degree. This is a further stage, very important.
So that, of course, highlights the importance of academic cooperation and a crucial role of universities for the socio-economic development. So, thank you very much. I would give, of course, highlight some main points from your perspective. I wonder, perhaps also about IGA, the Intergovernmental Authority on Development in the whole of Africa. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Stephen, for organizing this conference and for inviting us to Dar es Salaam. It's really great to be here in this beautiful place. Stephen asked me to talk about IGAD. I don't know if you know IGAD. It is Intergovernmental Authority on Development. It is an East African regional organization. Now, before I talk about IGAD, probably I should give you a picture of what the IGAD area of East Africa is. Probably it is the most volatile region in Africa, I would say. A lot of trouble. Our continent, conflicts basically in every country in the region. In Ethiopia, probably part of that war that we had a couple of years ago, which is not completely over. Still, there are some conflicts in the country. Very weak institution in Somalia. Still, there is no strong central government. Probably Khalid will explain to us the situation there. Probably you know about Eritrea. Still, one man of Eritrean leadership there. You have South Sudan, very fragile country, seceded from Sudan. And you have Djibouti, which is probably the most stable country compared to the other countries in the region. Then you have Kenya, of course, in a better situation. So these are the countries that we have in this area. Now, the countries share a lot of things. For example, the same communities live across international boundaries. We have Somali communities in Ethiopia. Just next to us, there is Somalia. There is a lot of commonalities. So these should have served as kind of factors of cooperation between the countries. But at the same time, they face also similar challenges. For example, the IGAD area is known for drought, and it is a very drought-prone area. Communities move from one country to the other. The international boundaries are not well protected and well defined also. So there is internal problem, and there are problems also that kind of put the countries against each other. So the IGAD was established in 1986 with specific purpose. One of the major problems in the area was drought. So it was to deal with drought that was established in 1996, then it was revitalized in 1993. Still it focuses on dealing with drought, especially the early warning system, and it also deals with conflicts. Remember the IGAD area, not only internal strifes, there are also secessionist groups. For example, I think in Africa, the only region where two successful secessions happen is in East Africa, in the IGAD area. We have South Sudan, and we have Eritrea also seceded from Ethiopia. There is also another secession in the making. I don't know, Ali will tell us probably later in the breakaway session. Somaliland is trying to secede from Somalia. It has already secured recognition from Israel, and it's waiting to get recognition from other countries. So it is a very complicated and very volatile region, basically, in this region, probably compared to any other region in Africa. So IGAD is supposed to help this region in terms of dealing with their common issue. One of the common issues being drought, the other common issue being peace, or lack of peace in that part of the country. Another issue probably that I should raise is IGAD is along the Red Sea, especially around the Bab Mandeb area, which is an international route of commerce, through which the ships that go to Europe through the Suez Canal pass, and that is also the area where there is a lot of challenges of piracy. Heard about it. So these are common challenges in that part of the continent. Of course, IGAD specializes in particular areas, like I said, conceptual issue and the drought issue. Of course, it's expanded from time to time. But IGAD is a weak institution created by weak countries. So, to what extent it has been successful in achieving the purposes for which it was established is an issue. It has a weak institution, it has financial challenges. IGAD is basically dependent on finance that comes from EU. EU is a major funding of IGAD. So, of course, EU does what it can do, but the member states are not contributing enough. Plus, IGAD is not as such an economic regional organization. It hasn't transformed itself into regional economic organization. It is still grappling with other challenges. So basically, this is about IGAD. If there are
Thank you very much. If I may comment, I think that IGAD European Union integration process, there was a very strong political will from the founding members and the founding fathers. You know, think about Schuman, Momeo de Gasperi, who really wanted to integrate, and then all the rest followed. So I will give the floor to Dr. Professor Duncan Oma from the African Development Bank, and of course, you know that this is a crucial instrument and an entity and institution for the regional integration process at the continental level. Thanks.
Hola, good morning everyone. Let me start by bringing the greetings of Professor Kelvin Murama, economist of the African Bank, who was supposed to be here as a recently. So I'll just speak about three things as I was guided by Stephen. Generally, I'll talk about the central role of the regional economic communities in Africa, and then secondly, I'll talk about the key challenges that these rights are facing, grappling with, and then finally, just what we do at the African Bank in terms of addressing issues to regional integration on the continent. Okay, thank you very much. So let me start by saying that at the African Development Bank, we see regional economic communities as building blocks of regional integration. And we consider them as very strong pillars for economic, social, and political progress on the continent. That's why we work very closely with all the 8 regional economic communities on the continent, of course also with the African Union and the AFCFTA Secretariat. So the role we look at, we see rights as having an advantage position in terms of addressing some of the developmental gaps that we have on the continent. So basically, we look at it from the perspective of what are the key developmental gaps that the continent is grappling with, how best these regional economic communities are placed to address some of the issues. Some of you may be familiar with the visa openness index that we develop or we prepare at the AFDB that tries to evaluate and assess the ease of movement of goods, ease of movement of people across the continent within the regional economic communities and beyond. And I think that remains a critical issue that RICE has to address, because we realize that movement of goods, movement of people within Africa or within the different regions of Africa has become very, very difficult. I have a friend of mine who currently works in Eritrea, and he comes from Kenya. And for him to travel from Eritrea to Kenya, which I think in my estimation is hardly 1,000 kilometers, he has to go through Istanbul, just taking a flight, first of all, to Turkey, and then coming back to Nairobi. So those are some of the issues, the gap that we see, and we think that these regional economic communities are better placed to be able to address and enhance connectivity in terms of transport connectivity, in terms of logistical connectivity, and movement within the continent. But also key is the issue of the harnessing demographic dividend. We know that the challenges to do with skills, I actually appreciate the kind of partnership that is happening here between Africa and the Europe to try to enhance skills development, research capabilities on the continent, and also be able to enhance the employability of the young people on the continent. We particularly also looking at the gaps we have around the youth employability and women employability. Our recent estimation shows that financing for women on the continent is about financing gap of about $42 US dollar, that is $42 billion US dollars. So looking at across different spectrum, the issues to do with the value addition on the continent, policy harmonization, and how these rights are positioned to be able to facilitate harmonization of policy, even financial sector policy, financial systems, to facilitate movement of capital, flow of capital across different countries, payment systems that are harmonized across different regions of Africa. Most importantly, also looking at it in terms of the gaps that we have in terms of development infrastructure. I think this is one of the areas that the FDB is also playing a critical role. Look at it in terms of the energy sufficiency, energy access, also in terms of energy dependence, but also look at it in terms of transport connectivity, be it in terms of the railway, in terms of roads, in terms of maritime transport. So the role of REC, the critical role that REC is playing on the continent is huge. Now, my second point will be basically to highlight some of the key challenges that all the 8 regional economic communities in Africa are grappling with. Some of them are similar to what the professors talked about, the same challenges that the European integration entities are so struggling with. But I think one that cuts across is the issue of underfunding of some of these regional economic communities and the issue to do with budget. Sustainable funding for this secretariat of these regional economic community institutions within these regs, like the legislative arms of these regs are not able to raise or have sustainable way of funding. And I think this is one of the areas, even though in the Europe, they still talk about budget, but I think some of the things we need to do are what kind of the lessons we are able to learn from the integration in Europe and in Asia in terms of being able to have a sustainable way of funding the regional economic communities. But the other issue, again, that other than the financial challenges, the other issue that all the regs on the region, on the continent are struggling with has to do with the institutional capacities. First of all, their ability to attract the best talents, to be able to stay in those institutions, support capacity development, governance issues, policy, strategy. It's a challenge to attract, but also sustain or maintain, keep those talents when they get there. But what has also emerged in the recent days, my colleague from Addis Ababa also talked about this, is the issue of fragility, the issue of peace and insecurity that is now distracting the regs and railing from focusing on prosperity, focusing on socio-economic development, and now a lot of effort and resources are being channeled to issues of peace and stability. And this cuts across not only in IGAD or the Horn of Africa, but in the Sahel, in West Africa. We have seen this as a major issue that is coming up. Need to strengthen security and peace and enhance peace building and state building, but also address the issues of fragility. Another key challenge that most of the rights are struggling with, that we have also pointed out, which can also be seen as a blessing, but also from the other flip of it, you see it also has, is the issue of overlapping membership, where we see quite a number of countries, like here in Tanzania, you find that one country is a member of different regional economic communities with different requirements in terms of implementation of protocols, in terms of key policies that sometimes are not harmonized. It could be several regs because you benefit in terms of what each reg is offering. But again, sometimes the issues of conflicting mandate, the issues of implementation of strategies, the fatigue that comes with it, and of course the issue of the divided loyalty. Some member countries tend to be more comfortable in one reg and not in the other. So lastly, maybe I would just want to maybe spend a little bit of my time to talk about the role of FDB and what we have done over the years to try to accelerate regional integration and also support the regional economic communities on the continent. But before that, Stephen also asked me to talk about briefly in terms of the ECOWAS, which is one of the, I think after the East African community, ECOWAS is one of the most integrated regional economic communities on the continent. But they also are facing very unique challenges. In recent years, we have seen key issues emerging on the region, particularly the issues to do with the withdrawal of some of the state members. We have seen some of the Sahel states withdrawing from the ECOWAS and bringing significant challenges. We have seen also the emerging issues with the democratic space that is shrinking. Quite a number of unconstitutional changes in leadership and governance of some of the countries in the region. But most importantly, from the economic perspective, ECOWAS, again, the economic dependence on foreign countries and out of the region, non-member countries, not only the continent and beyond, again, remains a major issue, of course, in addition to the issue of insecurity in the region. The movement, if you look at again, I talked about the visa openness index that we prepare. If you look at the movement in terms of people and goods within the ECOWAS, significantly increased over the years. And this, I think, one of the opportunities that the region may want to capitalize on to be able to accelerate its own integration, but also the bank. I really mentioned earlier that we are integration is one of integral. We work very closely with the regional economic communities, of course, through member countries, but also through the African Union or the AFCFTA. So we support regional integration largely in three ways. We provide capacity building and technical support to the RECs. I think all the 8 RECs on the continent, and the African Union and the AFCFTA Secretariat, we have provided in the past years, and currently we have ongoing projects where we provide capacity building and technical assistance in the EAC, in the IGAD, in SADC, in COMESA, and even in the African Union. But we look at it beyond just supporting the technical institutional capacities of these regional communities, but also in terms of supporting generally the integration, connectivity, and movement of people, movement of capital, flow of capital, movement of goods across the continent. That's why some people call the African Development Bank, in some quarters they call it the infrastructure bank, because of the amount of investment that the bank has put in infrastructure to enhance movement of goods, enhance connectivity, enhance movement of people across the region. So at AFDB, we look at, in addition to the support that we give at country level to develop infrastructure, whether it is roads, rail, software infrastructure, education, skills, but also in terms of, we also support in terms of regional flagship infrastructural development. We have done quite a number. Right now we are working on a close multinational SGR that runs from Tanzania, Burundi to Congo, but also previously we have done quite a number of roads. If you look at along the Cape to Cairo corridor, we have done quite a number of roads. I think just within Tanzania, connecting Tanzania, Kenya to Malawi, Rwanda, we have done over 1,000 kilometers. Again, in the energy, also trying to enhance accessibility of energy and affordability of energy across the continent and connecting different countries. We have done the Kenya, connecting Kenya to Tanzania, in the East Africa. We have done Uganda, South Sudan, and many other interconnectors within the Eastern African Power Pool and also the Southern African Power Pool and others across the continent. In addition to that, the bank has also been supporting regional integration through trade facilitation. Again, I will give an example of just here in Tanzania where we are. We have done quite a number of work in terms of trade facilitation, including putting up one-stop border post between Kenya and and Tanzania in Namanga, and there are many other parts of the continent. So our regional financial support or investment supporting integration goes beyond infrastructure. We have done also value chains that cut across different countries to enhance regional value chains, but also pharmaceuticals that also cut across different countries to support, of course, the health sector across different regions in Africa. So I think I'll stop at that, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Uma, and of course, we really want to underline and highlight the crucial role that the African Development Bank plays at the continental level in supporting regional integration. Thank you very much for all the work. So I will give the floor to the last speaker, Dr. Razul Ahmed from the University of Dar es Salaam.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Ambassador. I believe I have 10 minutes.
I think so.
Yeah. Being the last speaker, panelist, disadvantage because I've somehow been preempted that I have organized my intervention following the theme of the panel that reads the European Union and the African Regional Economic Cooperation between challenges and lessons. So I'll start with the characterization of the relations, then go to opportunities, challenges, and if time allows, some lessons. Here at the University of Dar es Salaam, we thrive on criticism, so bear with me, Ambassador, if I will sound a bit critical at some point. I don't want to dramatize my presentation, but so I will begin with a simple proposition. EU-Africa relations are important, but not uncomplicated. They are important, but not uncomplicated. They are important because Africa and Europe remain tied together by geography, trade, healthy migration, peace and security, and even multilateral diplomacy. But they are not uncomplicated because this relationship continues to carry the weight of history. Also, there are persistent asymmetries, and more importantly, disagreements over what genuine partnership should mean in practice. So if I were to characterize EU-Africa relations in one sentence, I would say this: it is a strategic partnership under renegotiation. A strategic partnership under renegotiation. The language of equality is now stronger than before, especially in the EU-Africa Joint Vision for 2030. But the lived experience of the relationship. There are four relationships. I'm going to characterize the relationship in four ways. The first way, the relationship is strategic. Neither side can ignore the other. Europe needs Africa in questions like of energy, migration, markets, security, and global diplomacy. Africa, too, engages Europe as a major economic, political, and institutional actor. So it is strategic. Second, the relationship is historically burdened. It is historically burdened. Colonial legacies have not disappeared. They still shape expectations. They still shape language. They still shape our relations. That is why recent debates increasingly speak of resetting or even decolonizing Africa-Europe relations. This is the language promoted by the likes of Professor Carlos Lopez. Third, this relationship is contested. There is a growing, you cannot ignore this, there is a growing African discomfort with a relationship that speaks the language of equality while sometimes reproducing hierarchy in trade, hierarchy in migration, hierarchy in health, and sometimes hierarchy in diplomacy. If I have time, I can explain some of this. For example, migration, we have a whole session later today, today or tomorrow, dealing with that. Fourth, this relationship is increasingly shaped by the African agency. Africa, what do we mean by African agency? Africa is no longer simply reacting. African actors are demanding voice, they are demanding policy space and a greater role in shaping the terms of engagement. So EU-African relations are no longer about aid or historical ties. They are now about bargaining over power, priorities, and the meaning of partnership itself. So let me go to the opportunities quickly. I've already spent 5 minutes. Despite my characterization, that is strategic, historically burdened, contested, or shaped by African agency, there are real opportunities that we're going to mention two. The first opportunity is to move from an aid-centered relationship to a transformation-centered relationship, and CIDRA is one of them. There is a realization on both sides, and which is gradually taking shape, that for this partnership to have any meaning, it must help this side, Africa, increases productive capacity, increases industrial capability, regional value chains, and technological strength. Second opportunity lies in health cooperation. COVID-19 pandemic exposed deep weaknesses in vaccine manufacturing that is more promising, on a more promising basis for partnership than episodic emergency donations. For example, today we have the EU Team Europe initiatives. They now explicitly support African manufacturing capacity for vaccines, medicines, and healthy technologies, including regulatory strengthening. Okay? So African medicine agency also receives support from the EU. So that matters because it shifts the agenda from charity to capacity building. So this is taking shape. It's one area of opportunity I see. The third opportunity is institutional learning. African RECs such as IGAD, EAC, SADC, ECOWAS can learn from EU's experience in rules, dispute management, and long-term institutional building, and structured cooperation. The way it is being explained by Professor Gonzalez there, that the way they started from incremental way into institutionalized setting. But what I'm saying, the value of the EU experience is not that Africa should reproduce it exactly, but that Africa can study what makes regionalism durable. Okay? So the opportunity is not simply more, while the EU promoted a different approach. So that divergence became a test of whether Europe fully accepted African priorities in practice. The third challenge, which I need to point out now, is world crises and wider geopolitical pressures. And here I have in mind the Ukraine war, not the current ongoing Iraq war. I mean the war between US, Israel on one side and Iraq. I'm talking about the Ukraine war. The Ukraine interest-based and plural diplomatic response. As you may notice in the resolution, one of the resolutions on Ukraine, yes, out of 54, 28 of them voted in favor, but others did abstain and vote. So it reinforced the argument that African positions must be judged as strategic choices in their own right, not as deviations from a European norm. And the first challenge is trade, especially the EPA issue. This is one of the clearest examples of tension in the relationship. Europe says it supports African integration, but African critics have long argued that some trade arrangements may undermine policy space or complicate regional cohesion. So let me, due to time, let me finish with some lessons for them and the lessons for these. The first reason, because you've seen they're creating institutions, they're emulating, I mean, they're drawing examples from the European Union. Now, the first lesson is for these RECs not to copy Europe mechanically. Learn from external partnerships should strengthen African intervention, not fragment it. This is where the EPA debates matter. EAC, SADC, ECOWAS, they need coordinated regional positions so that engagement with Europe reinforces African priorities instead of dividing. I know there is a tripartite arrangement. That is part of the learning. They've negotiated with EU through the tripartite arrangement, ECOWAS, COMESA, I think, EAC and SADC. African, the fourth lesson is African agency must be institutionalized. Agency is strongest when it is expressed collectively through strong secretariats and coordinated policy positioning. And so what I'm saying is regional blocks are more effective when they negotiate from a coherent platform. So the key question is no longer whether Africa has agency, but under what structural conditions that agency can become effective. And as pointed out by, very quoted by our chair, Ambassador Kukola, institutions matter, but political will matters even more. Europe's experience shows the importance of treaties, courts, and rules. Okay? So African RECs must combine institutional design with political substance and legitimacy. So we should not only be bent on building institutions, but we should build institutions whose rules are seen as fair, legitimate. Because you've seen, they have institutions, we have the East African Court, but these member countries are not respecting the rulings of the court. It's not the case with the European Court. Okay? So we must have the institution, but respect what the institutions are doing. So for African RECs, the EU is both a source of, I can conclude this way, is both a source of inspiration and a cautionary tale. It shows the value of institutions, but also the danger of mistaking institutional form for political substance and legitimacy. So for African RECs, the EU is both a teacher, but there's a warning. A warning because with the European Eurozone, the EAC has been slow to adopt its monetary single currency. It has pushed forward the timeline. It's been cautious because it has been living through the experience of the European Union. And then on top of that, there was Brexit. Okay? So the East African community has been reluctant in, I know there are other technical issues, but it has been learning from the European experience. Ambassador, let me stop there.
Thank you very much. Dr. Hamid, for very, very thought-provoking and very inspiring intervention. Just a comment. I think that across all partnerships, also at our human level, have problems. I think there is no perfect partnership. I think also internationally, I don't know if the European Union can talk about perfect partnership with some other regional group. With Africa, I wonder if Africa has a perfect partnership with another international partner. And of course, I think that we should always focus on things that unite us and the things we have in common. Another element I would like to underline that I think events and projects like this, like CIDRA, are just useful because they can also provoke our thoughts and inspire us, and really learning from each other with no imposition, because nobody wants to impose anything. You mentioned some of the speakers was highlighting one of the I think it was Professor Gonzalez, one of the principles of the European Union is unity in diversity. So we agree, not to disagree on many things, but we work together. So it's unity in diversity. I think that's also a very important thing. And if I may add, you mentioned the Russian, the war in Ukraine. There is also another way that the war is impacting Africa. There are lots of African young men that are promised a job in Russia, and they travel to Russia to find a job, but actually they find themselves fighting against Ukraine. That's something that's been quite common in many African countries, I understand. So thank you very much for your thoughts. So if I have time, maybe I would ask very briefly all the speakers, just very briefly, just one last sentence. Of course, time is never on our side as human beings. So if I would start in the same order of the interventions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. A couple of sentences, that's it. The first one is that I fully agree that the European regional integration process is rich, very successful, but of course it is for, in this case, Africans to decide not to reproduce it, but to look, to know about it, and to look which part of that experience can be useful. And I think it's not only to look into successes, but also to look into failures. We've learned a lot with failures. I think you learn more with failures than with successes. And the other thing that is very useful is techniques to solve problems. And I think that the European experience there is very rich. I prefer to say that in the CIDRA project we have a course on European integration. We also have a course on African integration, and that course is available to everyone. It's open. So if any of you is interested, please tell Steven, and they will tell you how to have access to it. And the last word is about the future of the European Union. As I see it now, I think there is a huge consensus that we need more Europe, more European integration, and not less. So I can perfectly imagine a union which is large and deeper.
Thank you very much for
Yeah, there was a very sad situation, incident that took place in that part of the continent. Therefore, cooperation with IGAD and the countries in that region is an important factor in the realization of the objectives. In this regard, as Ambassador mentioned earlier, there is major deficit of political will. The countries do not show the political will to make IGAD as a regional organization to succeed. The other is too much reliance on Europe or EU in terms of finance. I think there must be some kind of self-reliance when it comes to finance in order to run IGAD. IGAD cannot depend on Europe to pay water bill and electricity and expect to solve the problem of the region. Therefore, there must be some kind of increased contribution in terms of finance to the region and increased also enhanced political commitment in order to make the organization stronger and effective. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Two key points as my closing remarks. I think for the success of regional integration and REX in the continent, there are two things that we need to look into. One is to rethink the funding model, the REX, to ensure that it becomes more sustainable and is to invest in conflict prevention to allow the REX to play their key mandate of developmental goals rather than conflict solution. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Umar. And Dr. Ahmed, please.
Thank you. I have 2 points to conclude. The first one is the EU-Africa relations are too important to fail. They cannot fail. They are too important. You remember the head of the European Commission, Van der Leyen, when she was appointed, the first trip she made outside Europe was Africa. That was a symbolic gesture. Africa must be judged by summit declarations alone. It will be judged by whether the relationship helps Africa integrate and industrialize. The real question is no longer whether Africa and Europe should and with what degree of genuine reciprocity. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, the panelists, and especially thank you very much, Your Excellency Ambassador. Actually, we thought you were just a diplomat, but you organize like an academician, and you will, some of these days we will invite you to give a lecture in the classroom. It might be quite interesting. But Ranka, and also but there's to use all the chairpersons of the sessions. Please see Mr. Professor Wema. Then secondly, we are going to have a coffee break. I will invite all the panelists to use this door, the ambassadors and the diplomatic use this particular door, and they will be guided by Dr. We are going to have breakout rooms after this session. This will be room A, and then we are going to have room B and room C. This specific now invited for coffee, including our students. We're invited for coffee and lunch at a later stage, but we're also invited to participate in any room that will interest you. Very last, the shadow is also on the barcode that is in your identity card. So those who are participating from CIDRA, collect your identity cards at the reception there, and then you can also get the shadow by using this barcode. Having that said, let's go for coffee, and the chairpersons for the sessions, please come in front and meet Professor Wema for a few logistics, and then you'll know where your room are.
Scope gap. With this work, there is now a response to suggestions by area authorities that had asked subsequent research work to point towards this direction by looking at the Nigerian Federal Capital Territory and do further investigation in that. Now, the fourth takeaway is what the work refers to as transformational consulting. This work has re-emphasized that medium-scale enterprises should own their problems as well as their solution through the guidance of consultants. I thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Oriako.
Dr. Stevie, are there responses or questions?
No, we'll do the question and answer session afterwards. Thank you very much, Dr. Oriako, for your rigorous empirical work. We now move to the next speaker, Dr.
That was the first paper.
Louis
Under Financing Sustainable Development, Innovations for Regional Growth in the African Continent.
Professor Oriako, we're moving to the next speaker. We had one paper for you on the program.
Hello, TV Kirama.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
So we'll come back to you for the question and answer session. We only have one paper for you, and we...
Yes, I summarized the 4 takeaways from the paper.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay. You can proceed with yours. I'm done with mine. Thank you.
Can I ask if there's any other speakers for this session who are here in person?
Companies, African companies, you have only 4,000 declaring the origin. Where does it come from? Okay, so you can feel that there's a problem and potential biases. So from an econometric point of view, I won't bother you with this. It's a problem because when you try to take a look at the impact of imports on performances, you can really introduce biases due to the fact that only some of African companies declare the origin of equipment. I skip this, okay, and but I deal with these aspects. And just to remind you in the data, what I found, it's really interesting because we talk about Africa, but there's nothing much to do between African firms from Tunisia and firms from Tanzania. Okay, and you can see here regarding the imports that, of course, North African countries and Northern Africa are really plugged into the EU imports, okay, with more than 60% of firms declaring that their main influence regarding imports are coming from Europe, whereas, of course, in Southern Africa, okay, yes, there's 77% are actually imported from African countries. So you can feel the heterogeneity, okay, of imports influencing the innovation in African companies. Okay, just to remind this, it's really important to deal with the heterogeneity of African countries and the heterogeneity of impact of these imports on innovation. Here are the ugly results. So I skip this. I just will tell you the main results. I will focus on product innovation. So what is the impact of these imports, high-tech imports or middle-tech imports on the probability to innovate, and especially on the probability to innovate in product. Okay, so product innovation. And you can see that an interesting result is that actually you have China is underperforming compared to Europe. Okay, that mainly that when you buy your machines and material in Europe, you have more than 6% higher probability to innovate in products. Okay, so you can feel that the arbitrage, if you want to really innovate in your African company, you're more likely to buy machines from Europe. Okay, raw material from Europe. Okay, and you can also, what is interesting is that the problem of African companies is actually when they import their goods from African country, other African country, actually they are likely also to lower their probability to innovate in product by 6% also. So you can feel that it's not a good news for African companies because they cannot yet rely on African suppliers. Nevertheless, take a look at the red. There's no difference between imports coming from other African countries or imports coming from China, meaning that you buy a machine, a Tanzanian company is buying a machine in Ivory Coast, it will be with the same impact on the probability to innovate in products than if they buy a machine in China. Now I move to
recording stopped.
Okay, thank you. Now I move to the probability to innovate in process. Okay, do you change the process of production in your company? And then actually the main results is that if you want to innovate in process, you're more likely to buy machines from China. Okay, to innovate in process. Bonus is not that big. Okay, it's almost 1% in your company. Okay, the marginal effect actually the main result is that meaning that there's no significant, but it's not a big, it's not a big bonus from China, but you can feel that it's interesting. And actually, if you want to innovate in processes, there's no differences between buying a machine in Europe, in African country, or elsewhere in the world. Okay, so you can see that China actually is making a point in Africa only regarding process innovation. And actually, the impact of these imports on the African companies is limited, with only 1%. So if you compare, there's two modes of imports. There's the one focused on product, where African firms are more likely to buy equipment in Europe, and also when they want to make progress regarding their processes, they are more likely to buy to Chinese suppliers. And so you can see the trade-off that actually it's not at all the usual way to think about trade. okay? But it's a matter of strategy for African firms. So once you're free to import goods, you have to wonder where. Where is the main question you have to ask here, okay? And it's clear that whatever is a free trade zone, you don't care.
Recording in progress.
What you care is that your machine is coming from Europe because you target product innovation or you're targeting process innovation and you want to buy it from China. So it's a signal for policymakers, and also that the second conclusion here, I have to be fast, and my second conclusion is that trade zones and free trade is maybe necessary, but it's not enough, okay? You need absorptive capacity, and if you want the African companies likely to develop their own industry, to not depend on Chinese machines, okay, to not depend on European machines, then you have to develop also their absorptive capacity. They are more likely with higher human capital to really make progress and boost African growth. Okay, so this is the main message of the paper. The paper is available, okay, in PDF, and so you can read it. It's the first version, and I will introduce the next level, which is the impact of innovation on productivity of these African companies. Okay, so feel free to read the paper. I hope the first results are interesting enough to move to the paper. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Guilleri, for your very insightful paper, very vigorous. We now move to the next speaker. I have here AOC Lobon speaking to us virtually. Welcome. Over to you. I would like to thank the previous speaker for his insightful paper with a lot of insights for policymakers. So we'd like to now call on the next speaker, which is Dr. OAC Olopon. Welcome, and over to you. I don't see Dr. Olopon, so I'll move on to the next speaker. That is Professor Mateo Mukegere. Saw you earlier. Mateo. Prof. Mateo, are you with us? Did log on. You are muted, Prof. Mateo. You might be speaking, but I cannot hear you. Okay, in the interest of time, we'll come back to you, Prof. Mateo. We then move to Dr. Otuya.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning, sir. Welcome. Over to you. You've got 10 minutes.
Thank you very much. Permission to share my screen?
Permission to share screen, please. I think you already have it. Can you try and share?
No, I don't have the permission.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I don't know if you have my slides with you. I sent them via email.
Okay. So your slide is being put up just now.
Okay. So while the slide is coming up, I'll just do a quick introduction just to maximize time. My name is Chinedo Tuya. I'm from Nigeria. Greetings from Abuja, Nigeria. I would have loved to be in the conference there at Dar es Salaam, but unfortunately couldn't be there. So thankful for the opportunity to make a presentation virtually. The slide coming up. Or maybe you can just grant me permission to share. Or okay. Or if you stop sharing, I can share.
Sorry, Prof. Otuya, we have the previous speakers PowerPoint up. We're just fixing that and putting yours up. Just a moment, please.
Yes.
Professor Olokon, can you please unshare your screen? We'll circle back to you so that the current speaker can project and we'll come back to you.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. I'll proceed. The title of this paper is Contribution to the Discourse on Advancing National Open Science Framework Through Federation. This is the outline. Talk about a brief introduction, the primary objectives, brief discussion on base paper, methodology, implementation and results, conclusion, and reference. Okay, so what's the topic about? It's a contribution to the National Open Science Framework, which will serve as a model for both here in Nigeria, Africa, and perhaps the rest of the world. The world globally is shifting towards open science and open educational resources to promote inclusivity, reproducibility, and the fair principles, which is findable, accessible, interpretable, and reusable data principles. The reality here in Nigeria is that we have a fragmented systems where research are produced in silos. There's a need to provide a backbone, a system where open science can thrive. The problem, or the research problem, is institutional repositories, like I said, operate in silos. The 2017 National University Open Educational Resource Policy stated that there's a lack of metadata standardization, systematic data stewardship, and integration. So, the Nigerian Institutional Repository Identity System, NIRIS, aims to aggregate research across universities, polytechnics, college education without stripping the institution of their autonomy. That is the intellectual property of what each researcher in prospective universities produces. Our aim and objective. We are going to try to explore a coordinated national open science framework, leveraging federated repository model, using a case study of the Nigerian Research and Education Network, NGREN, and Federal University of Technology, Owerri. Our specific objectives is to evaluate the current state of open science infrastructure in these institutions, assess the capacity of NGREN's federated infrastructure, NIRIS, to support fair implementation, identify technical and policy barriers affecting the repository system, and propose a tangible federated framework. Okay, so I'm going to go to the screen. Our base paper. On our base paper, we discovered that the fair data principle is actually a worldwide, is a global standard and framework which is being used. Research by Zhang et al. And Xia et al. 2025 were able to come up and show that global frameworks is being operated both in Europe, Latin America, and the Federation aims to aggregate metadata while keeping central information with actual files still there. The National Universities Open Educational Resource policy, like I mentioned earlier, stated that universities showed fear of ceding control of their intellectual property while trying to put into a central system. A fair framework aims to quantify a standard benchmark that will be used for both the several institutions and the aggregating federated repository. Our methodology, we used a unique methodology evaluating DSpace. DSpace is a software for repositories, version 9. We sampled the DSpace at FUTO, Federal University of Technology, Federal University in Nigeria, and the one by the central system in the Nigerian Research and Education Network. We collected data in the period of for 2 weeks in January 2026. We analyzed the contents, the repository holdings. We also carried out semi-structured interviews with the repository managers. The analysis was both quantitative and qualitative. For qualitative, we use in vivo to code contents of the interview. For quantitative, we use IBM SPSS to evaluate the matrices of the DSpace at both organizations. We also benchmarked with the FAIR framework, and additional research also included the FAIRest, that's ST, which includes security and trust. Which includes social and trust matrices. Okay? So these are some of the results of what we analyzed. We saw what the contents of the repository and the Federal University of Technology Owerri. We also looked at the subject content of what the repository contains. We also looked at the one provided to by the Nigerian Research and Education Network. We also looked at the content. For more detailed analysis, we looked at the OAI MPH, that Open Access Initiative Protocol for Metadata Harvesting. We looked at what was there, what was missing, what is compared to a national framework using fair data principles. We proposed a solution in all into consideration, and how it works. It works like a central system using the spoke and the hub. Without federation, research will exist in silos. If a researcher, for example, in Dar es Salaam in Tanzania, wants to know what a researcher is doing, perhaps in Nigeria, Abuja, Nigeria. The researcher doesn't necessarily have to come to Nigeria, but however, with a federated system, the federation creates a unified national framework. Okay, that's on the African continent. But if it was in Nigeria, for example, a researcher in Uweri and a researcher in maybe Abuja, for instance, will have to use a national framework, a single gateway that aggregates the intellectual output of the entire country's university system, making it vastly more discoverable to the rest of the world. So this model can be replicated in several other African countries and also on under Africa as a collaborative body. In conclusion, Abdul found out that 30 out of 37 open access repositories are hosted on this space, which is a good platform to use. And Nigeria possesses the underlying technological capacity for a national open science framework, but lacks the modern policy to enable the system. We also found out that social UX values features were also missing, and which can add to the functionality of the system. What are our recommendations? We recommend the CCBY licensing, which is open licensing to be used. We recommend transition to data repositories, moving beyond PDFs to just hosting raw data, and to enable AI and machine learning research. We recommend a socialized infrastructure, that's adding a feature where a national researcher's profile is also integrated in the system, which also lead to more discoverability and findability. Finally, we need to bridge the divide. Lots of institutions, both universities, polytechnics, college educations, are yet to come on board. Of course, part of the issues we have are infrastructural issues, power issues, connectivity issues. So with that, I bring my presentation to a close. These are some of the selected references, and these are the rest of the research team picked from several universities in Nigeria: National University of Nigeria, Federal University of Technology Owerri, Federal University of Lokoja, and Ebonyi State University. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Professor Tuya. We now go back to Professor Olokon. And once again, thank you very much, Professor Tuya, for your contribution to the discourse on advancing the national open science framework in Nigeria. Very insightful indeed. So, Dr. Professor Olokon, you can please bring back your presentation, and the floor is yours.
Chairman, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Am I audible?
You are audible, we can hear you, we can
Thank you very much.
We can see your presentation, but can you make it full screen, please?
Everyone is listening?
We hear you, we see your presentation, but can you make it full screen, please? The full slideshow. Can you hear me, Dr. Lopa? Are you still there, Dr. Lopa? Okay, I think in the interest of time, we'll go back to Professor Mateo. You're still with us. Let's check. Professor Professor Mateo, Kengera. Okay. All right, then let's go to Professor Okneye Babatunde. You're with us? So not that's the things. Then let's go to all my speakers. Okay, Prof. Olokwan, have you solved your sound issue? Professor Mateo, you unmuted just now. Are you with us?
Hello.
Hello, sir.
Morning.
Good afternoon.
I'm worried, but it's not possible to share. I see that I'm not allowed to share.
Please try again now.
Let me try again. Let me try.
Professor Olokwan?
I don't know if it's just. Hello?
Yes, yes. Professor Mateo?
Yes, yeah.
Are you ready?
I'm waiting.
Okay. We still don't see your screen. Can you try sharing it again?
If I can try to?
Share your presentation.
Like this?
We still don't see it.
I don't understand very well.
Prof?
Hello?
Hello. Are you able to share your
Hello,
screen?
I've just shared. I don't know if it's just already there.
Okay. Can you please attempt to share your presentation? Can you try one more time, please?
Actually, I don't understand very well.
Okay. Maybe just speak and then we will follow you on the audio. You go ahead and present.
If I can just begin that?
Yes.
Yeah. I said that my paper read about the new climate economy in the Democratic Republic of Congo and its impact on the global ecology transition. They contain her 8 points. Context: areas affected by the new climate economy in the DRC, the budget line item in the finance law, international and international actors, DRC initiatives, links between the new climate economy and the ecological transition in the DRC, some positive experiences in some countries, and challenges and prospects. About context, the Congo Western rainforest is the last of the world's 3 major tropical forest systems, still sufficiently intact to be a net carbon sink, with more than 2/3 or 3 forests, approximately 145 million hectares, located in the DRC. However, the Congo Basin rainforest is currently experiencing one of the highest rates of deforestation in the world. while deforestation rates in Brazil and Indonesia have been higher than the DRC over over the past 20 years. The DRC's rates now exceed those elsewhere. Indeed, the DRC is often described as a geological scandal due to the vastness of its natural resources. Its subsoil is rich in strategic minerals such as cobalt, copper, coltan, gold, diamonds, and lithium. The DRC possesses abundant natural resources, including minerals, hydrocarbons, airborne, and forests. Its biodiversity and forests, representing the second largest ecological land in the world after the Amazon, also constitutes an action win for humanity. Paradoxically, the abundance of wealth has not led to sustainable economic in the well-being of the populations in the world. Despite this wealth, the DRC faces significant economic and environmental challenges and paradoxically remains among the poorest countries. On the contrary, the DRC continues to grapple with endemic poverty, poor governance, political instability, and armed conflict fueled by the uncontrolled exploitation of resources. However, faced with the contemporary challenges of climate change and the global energy transitions, the DRC's resources are acquiring new strategic importance. Cobalt, for example, is essential for electric batteries, and Kangal's forests play a major role in carbon sequestration. That another revolution is emerging, that of the new climate economy, in which the DRC occupies a central position and cultivates its minerals for its peatlands, forests, and biodiversity, which have become the new treasures in the global fight against climate change. Between a chaotic mining legacy and promising ecological prospects, the country defends itself as strategic turning point, potentially redefining its development model and its place in the world. This new dynamic, that of the new climate economy, is emerging, redefining the value of natural resources, not only in terms of their extraction, but also in terms of their conservation. The global transition to a green economy offers new opportunities, particularly for carbon credits, renewable energies, and preservation of tropical forests. The new climate economy is emerging as a response to global environmental crisis. It proposes a development model based on the carbonization, the green economy, technological innovation, and climate justice. For with the challenges of climate change, the DRC is now positioning itself as key player in the new climate economy. The resource scarce stems largely from excessive dependence on fossil fuels and raw materials. However, the fight against climate change has given rise to a new global dynamic, the new climate economy, which is based on decarbonization, the green economy, technical innovation, and the energy transition. About areas affected by the new climate economy in the DRC, there are forest and peatland conservation, the development of green infrastructure, the carbon markets, renewable energy, and transformation of natural resources. Decarbonizing energy efficiency, circular economy, green technological innovation, climate justice, and so on. About the budget in terms with the financing law, there is no specific budget line. It analogous to the new climate economy in the DRC finance law. About the actors in DRC, there are the governments, civil society, non-governmental organizations, and so on. About the initiatives that are just done with the DRC country governments, there are technical and financial partnerships, the implementation of reducing emission due to deforestation, the establishment of fund about reducing emission about deforestation, the sustainable capital project, the implementation of the Kivu-Kinshasa Green Corridor project, the carbon credits and environmental market, the establishment of Congolese Agency for Ecological Transition and Sustainable Development, the establishment of the mechanism of own development, the appointment for the very first time of a junior minister for the new climate economy in the government of DRC, the mining transparency initiative, local participation and governance, about land between the new climate economy and the ecological transition in DRC. For instance, to hold the increase of the global average temperature to well below 2000 above the pre-industrial level, and to pursue efforts to limit the temperature increase 1.5 above the conventional level, recognize that they will sustainable reduce the risk and impacts of climate change, to strengthen the adaptation capacity to the adverse effects of climate change and promote resilience to such changes, as well as greenhouse gas emission developments in a manner that does not free for production. And so reducing greenhouse emission, green gas emission, and so on. For some experiences, positive experiences, some countries which have tried and success, Botswana, for instance, reaching diamond, this country has invested in education, health, and diversification, largely scrapping the diamond past. Will found it has managed its own resources prudently and sustainably. Rwanda, lacking significant research, that country is focusing on ICT, finance, and sustainable tourism. About challenges and projects. Challenges, despite its strength, the energy transition in the DRC is hampered by several challenges, such as deforestation and forest degradation, greenhouse gas emission, and the risk of green cars, international inertia, geopolitical pressures, lack of transparent mechanism, corruption, and poor governance, conflicts and instability. Access to energy remains very limited. Governance of energy and mining sector is insufficient. The slow implementation of a current and sustainable energy policy is also hindering process. Perspectives. a commitment to significant reform for green, transparent, and effective governance capable of leveraging strategic minerals resource developing the manufacturing sector, investment in education and training, climate finance and international partnership, investment of factors, economic diversification and local industrialization, sustainable forest management, international cooperation based on equitable partnership that respects sovereignty of countries of the DRC, move away from hydrocarbon dependence, reforms the governance of effective sector, combat corruption and poor governance, monetize forest conservation for carbon market mechanism, develop a green and more ethical mining industry, develop renewable energy, attract international climate finance, promote sustainable forest management, create green section, and strengthen governance, diversify the economy, involve local community, living climate, politics, and so on. Hello? 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 Yeah, I'm just finished. That's the end.
Much, Prof. So I'm going to try to go back
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your work on how the DRC is navigating green transition and what you're also learning from peer economies such as Botswana. Thank you very much. So we will now, one more time, try to get a log one. Prof, or log one. I can see you, but you are muted. And I think you want to start sharing your presentation as well. We cannot hear you. I can see you are speaking proper one, but okay, all right, no problem. Perfect. We can see your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, please go ahead. That will be 10 minutes. They are not audible, sir, but we still can't hear you. We can see your presentation and your video, but we cannot hear your voice. Maybe log off and then come back. Thank you.
Hello, Chairman.
Yes, now we can hear you.
Chairman, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, you can hear me?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Let me quickly do my presentation. There's a lot of network issues here. This is Dr. Lobo from Nigeria. Greetings from my people from Olabisi Onabanjo University in Agowoye. I would have also loved to be there, but for some reason, I appreciate the opportunity given me to present. This paper is titled Forensic Accounting Skills for Fraud Detection, Control, and Prevention in Savings and Credit Cooperative Financial Management. We have issues emerging from Ogun State in Nigeria. I co-authored this paper with 4 other colleagues, and this is the other presentation, but let me quickly go straight to the
Please mute yourself again. You've muted yourself. Professor Olokwan? Prof? You've muted yourself. Please unmute.
In 2021 in Nigeria, about 4 banks lost more than 1.77 billion naira to fraud only in 1 year. So the statement of the problem is cooperative financial operation, generally cooperatives, they are self-managing, their members coming together to control themselves voluntarily, to govern themselves, and to help themselves economically and socially by pulling their resources together. There are people with meager resources, but they are looking for ways to maximize their economic and social benefit despite their little or meager resources. And as time goes on, as circles expand and as they grow and they become wide in complexity, the problem of financial fraud tends to come in. Then the objectives here, there are 3 of them. In this study, has tried to examine the level of awareness of forensic accounting system among circles in Ogun State, Nigeria. We also try to see to gauge the level of perception to rationalize fraud whenever it happens, and then arrogance, tendency to want to cover up whenever fraud occurs. So we have what is called the red flag in fraud detection. Red flags are symbols, they are signals, they are indicators that fraud has just occurred or is about to occur. We have behavioral red flags, which are attitude or actions that we look for that signals the coming of fraud. We also have operational red flags. Those are the ones that are within the system itself, like procedural inconveniences, inconsistency, inefficiency that predispose a sample to fraud. The stewardship theory also stipulates that there is a steward, there's a steward and an ownership relationship between the members of a cooperative society and their board. The members are the principals, they commit their resources unto the hands of the board members to monitor and to control for them, and they must do this professionally. This study took place in Ogun State, Nigeria. We collected data, secondary data from 202 cooperative societies, and we also augmented the record from, we obtained record from financial activities of cooperative members, and we augmented it with the socioeconomic data for members of the board. So the analysis we presented some in the descriptive statistics, and some we also use the binary logistic regression model here. The tendency of fraud to occur in the cooperative society.
Yeah, so I think we'll end it there. Let's just cut our losses. Not sustainable this network issue. So everyone, thank you very much. I think a warm round of applause for all our speakers in person and virtually. Those who are with us virtually will miss out on the lunch. Those who are here with us, we've been invited to a lunch in the breakfast area. So let's all head there.
I'm sorry.
Thank you very much. Sorry, is that, who is that? Okay. Thank you very much, Professor Olokpon. The network issues are just terrible.
Yeah, there's a serious network issue here that I'm trying to battle.
We can't.
But I'm almost.
A lot of presentation. So the presenters will give a maximum of 10 minutes. So please be precise. And I don't know how to start with maybe those who are online or the ones who are here. I don't know.
Wonderful. Okay, Makuta, you have, please be patient because we have some.
So let's start with the first paper. Who is, I don't know, the titles are missing. This is why I'll cite the last names. The Iraqi, the paper on PC and security processes in Eastern DRC. Please. You're given 10 minutes to tell us something.
thank you for giving me the floor. I am Iraj Fitan from DRC. I appreciate the opportunity given me to present my paper, which is titled Peace and Security Processes in Eastern of DRC. What contribution does the multiple membership in a regional organization make? For the presentation plan, we are going to deal with the context. Secondly, we are going to present question and the methodology. For the third time, we will present contribution of East African community and South African development community. And for the fourth time, we will make a comparison of East African community and SADC contribution to the process of peace and security in Western DRC. And for the fifth time, we will present challenges, and at the end, we will present some conclusion elements. Political and economic and security reason, DRC is a member of different regional organizations, Central, and Southern, and East Africa. But this reality is not unique for DRC, but it's rather observable in several African states, sometimes limiting the capacities and the cohesion of regional blocs in Africa than saving their effectiveness. I was saying that this membership in different regional organizations, sometimes limiting the capacity and the cohesion of regional blocs in Africa rather than saving their effectiveness. And for the current situation in Eastern DRC, the M23 crisis in the DRC has ignited the issue of peace and security in Eastern of DRC. And several political, diplomatic, and military initiatives by international organizations have been launched to support the peace and security process in Eastern DRC. This is the case with the intervention of the East African community and Southern African Development Community, which have played roles in promoting security and peace in Eastern DRC. While African states join multiple regional organizations to build cumulative safety nets for peace, security, and economic development by complementarity and subsidiarity, this leads to competition and rivalry. And for the peace and security process in Eastern DRC, multiple membership creates a competitive arena where overlapping mandates, geopolitical rivalry, and uncoordinated intervention between DRC and SADC actively hampered the conflict resolution. And this situation or this context leads us to ask one main question: how does the DRC's multiple memberships in African organizations contribute to pacification and stability in DRC, and what are the challenges? We used a qualitative methodology analyzing different resolution and positions taken by both DRC and SADC for the peace and security processes in Eastern DRC. And we had a geopolitical approach analyzing geopolitical influence of both two organizations and their respective members on eastern of DRC. So what are contributions of these two organizations, regional organizations for peace and security in eastern of DRC? We proceed by giving a global overview. And here we are going to, we have mentioned a dual objective coalition of SADC and DRC pursue the exact same objectives which aim to economic development conditional upon peace and security. And here we are going to show also a legal redundancy. In the case of both process mutual defense framework, for example, the ERC 2012 protocol, and for SADC, the 2003 pact. Here we have also a geographic convergence, both attempt to exercise security mandates over the exact same territory. In this case is the Eastern DRC. What are the contribution of DRC? Here we underlined a high diplomatic velocity but a low tactical output. Secondly, we have a diplomatic volume in so that 8 major ERC summit held regarding Eastern DRC security situation, and all these summits repeated resolution for ceasefire and dialogue from July 2022 to 2024. The mandate limitation, ERC resolution consistently failed to denounce external aggression, treating the crisis strictly as an internal DRC issue. And at the end, we have a military reality, so that the ERC Joint Regional Force deployed September 2022 achieved minimal tangible results on the ground. So why ERC force failed? There are some reasons which made the failure of ERC force. Firstly, we have the lack of unified command. So participating states prioritize strategic national control over regional operation unity. Secondly, we have balkanized operation. And here we are going to see that troops operated in isolated national zones of influence rather than executing a cohesive, threat-wide strategy. And we mentioned also offensive reluctance. Here, the majority of ERC states refused the request of the government of DRC to transform the ERC joint force into an offensive force against M23 and other rebels group. So all these reasons make conducted to the mandate of ERC force was not renewed by the DRC government in December 2023. But for another side, the contribution of SADC consisted by the context was following to ERC's failure. The SADC force, SAMI-DRC, was deployed in December 2023, bringing a fundamentally different approach. And this approach is, for example, for the strategic framework, so that this force, SAMI DRC, was deployed under the 2003 SADC Mutual Defense Pact, which stipulated that an attack against one is a threat to all. But the SAMI DRC also was failed, and there are some reasons which made the deadlock and the fall of the city of Goma. Among the reasons, we have the shift in power, for example, the significant advance of M23 rebels forces, the collapse of major urban centers, including the fall of Goma and Bukavu. And here, we are going to see also that SAMI DRC suffers severe casualties despite concentration around Goma, including the loss of soldiers, especially South African soldiers. When we try to make a comparison of SADC and ERC contribution, we are going to see in the first column the intervention of ERC and the intervention of SADC. Here we have the perception of the crisis. For SADC, the SADC is the crisis like an internal DRC problem. For SADC is an external aggression against a member state. And we have also the military posture, so that we can see in this pie chart the fragmented zones.
For SADC, it is a unified force, the SAMI DRC offensive alongside the army of DRC. But what are now some challenges? We are going to see that state interests were overriding regional mandates. And here, in intervention of these two organizations, we have but we are going to see that for these four countries, interests of
some conclusion elements, we are going to see that states in this question of multiple membership in different regional organization, states are engaged in geopolitical battles against a backdrop of pursued economic and political interest, limiting their capacity to contribute effectively to peace and stability in Eastern DRC. thank you for your attention. I apologize for my English accent. I am a French speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry, for your presentation. So, presenters, please speak to findings and probably challenges. You can ignore introduction, methodology. So the next presenter is Mwambusa, Security Governance in DRC under the test of imperialism. Zio she around. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so it's supposed to be physical. It's physical.
Maybe let's go to the third one. Ntwali and Zali. Yes, Ntwali. Bakanga. On the paper on crisis management by the EU being the EAC, the East African Community, and the intergovernmental authorities on development.
participate in this conference, which presents a significant opportunity. It offers the opportunity to present the substance of our article on crisis management by the European Union with the East African Community and IGAD. This is my first presentation in English. I apologize for my diction. For recent time, I will be briefly cover the historical and taxonomical aspect of the organization in order to concentrate on the core of the study. My presentation order is a background to the article, purpose for the article, methodological and theoretical framework and of the study, taxonomic classification of organization and institutional history of IGAD and ARC, history of IGAD and ARC, Cooperation Union European IGAD and Union European ARC, limit of in-European aid in crisis management of ARC and IGAD, and conclusion. The purpose of the article. The purpose of this article is to analyze the modalities of the Union European intervention in East African community, highlighting how articulates in national, diplomatic, and legal instruments with the institutional dynamic specific to IGAD and East African community, to understand how the Union European contributes to the consolidation of peace and security while simultaneous foreign regional integration capable of enhancing the resilience of states in the face of political and environmental crises. Methodological and theoretical framework of the study. We use a qualitative approach, documentary method, and empirical observation with a theory of liberalism, which posits that despite the article nature of international system, regional and international institutions can structure state behavior by crediting uncertainty and foreign cooperation and foreign cooperation. This method enables the evaluation of collective security arrangements, regional legal framework, and inter-institutional partnership that influence the conduct of member states. Classification of organization story. In the theory founding test of IGAD, assign its integrative purpose. However, in practice, is function largely as a cooperative organization compared member states to apply common rules and commit. We tax Union European is a general regional organization, East African sub-regional, and IGAD sub-regional. They are the same characteristic, but Union European is different because it is a general regional organization. I say that I will not insist to the historical cooperation Union European and IGAD. In the field of peace and security, the Union European provides financial support for more million people in need of agency assistance. Union European mobilizes a range of projects to support IGAD.
Many projects illustrate Emerging Trust Fund of Africa, for example, 33 million in GAD for promoting peace and stability in the Horn of Africa. 60 million in response of COVID-19 supports IGAD emergency coordination with intervention in water, sanitation, and hygiene. 40 million in humanitarian and for Ethiopian, 269 million for Sudan, and so on. There are a list of programs supported by Union European. Despite Union European support, IGAD remains limited in capacity to manage crises in the Horn of Africa owing the structure constraints such as political fragmentation, institutional weakness, and financial dependence. The factors of these interventions that are often unsustainable and difficult to evaluate, characteristic by fragile impact on indicator and absence of harmonized evaluation from all. Union European and EAC cooperation, mechanisms of EAC, Union European cooperation and economic governance. One integration economic and governance, the accord between the two organizations primarily post-trial liberation to the effectiveness remain contingent upon adaptation to local structures and is contained by legal and institutional limitations. Institutional strength, means, and governance. Another strength of cooperation addresses economic governance itself. The Union European
The Union European invests in programs supporting good governance, national transparency, capacity build, and anti-corruption measures across the East African region. Comparison of Union European and African and East African community integration models. The comparison between the two organizations have on the hand the Union success resulting from substantial political and institutional convergence supported by supranational mechanisms, and the other hand, the persistent limitation of ESC is arising from economic and social disparities, with requires a caution adaptation of the European model to the African realities. Union European limited direct involvement in East African community political crisis management, limited by involvement to the European Union in managing political press with East African community member states resist in constant net operation engagement, ensure framework and strategic priorities of the Union European. Ensuring complexity and weak coordination between civilian and military instruments. Prevalence of the principle of sovereignty and ardent constraint of intervention. Prioritization of civil and economic instruments of coercive or military options. Complexity of regional political crises and the role of the regional actor. Limitation of Union European assistance in the East African community and IGAD. There are two categories of limitation: exogenous limitation and endogenous limitation. The weakness of IGAD stems from political fragmentation among member states, characterized by divergent national priority and absence of shared politic will, and the operational level, a lack of resource-efficient government, and elite coordinating momentum toward regional integration. This is the endogenous difficulty of Union European. Exogenous is the exogenous competition among multiple external actors. Politics constantly limit the Union European's capacity to respond rapidly and effectively to the general regional crisis. This external dynamic exacerbates existing institutional fragility and hinders the coordination of timeliness of intervention across the East African community and IGAD framework. A tableau who represents the two categories of limitation. Exogenous ability institutional, will policy, resource and funding, environment staff, crime, legal, and mandate. Prospects for streamlining Union European and crisis with East African community. The underperformance of IGAD and East African community rests on institutional fragility and deficient government exacerbated by historical, legal, and predatory political elites. The remedy lies is consolidating state and regional institutions, post-endogenous democratic, and establishing inclusive collective security mechanisms. The Union European can reform catalyze and climate resilience, thereby transforming patterns of dependency into constructive interdependency. First recommendation is a strength state and regional government. Second, promote endogenous development, collective security, of economic integration. 5, reorient external assistance and integrate the environmental dimension. For conclusion, the article demands that the Union European intervene in East African and IGAD, mobilize financial, diplomatic, and regional cooperation instruments inspired by institutional liberalism. The Union European supports IGAD in early warning, mediation, and migration management, while the East African community remains a key partner for regional integration and conflict prevention. This program seeks to address the root cause of crisis, displacement, pastoral conflict, and institutional fragility, rather than deliver ad hoc response, however, the Union European was content linked to international coordination and misalignment with local priority. The article reminds the reorienting European action toward national strengthening, context-sensitive democratization, collective security, and local ownership to build listening.
Thank you, Bakanga, for this. So let's go to the fourth presentation on Southern America, Library, and the Future of Europe, Africa Cooperation by Aganzi Athman. CIDRA online. Or maybe we can
So let's proceed to the next physical paper. How to plot united strategy for combating hybrid welfare states.
Good afternoon to all. I'm welcoming you all for the first academic CIDRA conference, and my topic is CIDRA Unified Strategy for Combating Hybrid Warfare Threats. So, we have to swiftly, the Europe and African Union have to combine for combating the hybrid warfare threats. So this is the traditional warfare. Warfare through land, warfare through sea, warfare through air. But it is traditional warfare slowly migrated into this hybrid warfare. So this is the hybrid warfare. So what is the hybrid warfare? If they are creating some disinformation or they are misconception among the public or targeting the critical anyone infrastructure to affect the national economy. That is the one definition of hybrid warfare. So these are the different examples of definitions for hybrid warfare. They can create some role, they can give some media, they can use the media, they can use the online network to reduce the nation and to disrupt the people, peace and security. So these are the, instead of giving the fact, they are segregating like a fake news. So they are giving one seed to the people that slowly it will develop and it will create the mistrust. So these are the different types of hybrid warfare. They can give cognitive and psychological threats, they can give for cyber threats, they can go for economic threats, or they can go for infrastructure threats and other disruption. They are giving some false information among the public. These are some hybrid warfare threats. So, in order to that, European Union and African Union has to combine, because not only these countries, every country is now threatened to this hybrid warfare. So these are some types of hybrid warfare. Definitely, every day, every time, every minute, every country is used to any one warfare threat they are facing. Any one warfare threat. It may be economic information warfare, it may be electronic warfare, it may be a hacker warfare, it may be a cyber warfare, or it may be a psychological warfare, or network, or biological warfare, narrative warfare. Actually, these warfares and all is very new for us. Narrative warfare and human-centric warfare, and now recently we are going for a vector warfare. It is vector warfare is biologically mimic the human emotions using the AI. So finally, it's the technology warfare. So see here, apart from the traditional warfare, these are the different types of warfare, unknown. Actually, we people were educated, we know, but unknown people, now the common people, they don't know what is happening. So whatever the other people they are doing, they will trust. Then they will do. So these are the, so actually mainly it is occurring to the internet. So only I am giving like the threat to the full online society. So I give some definition. So what is economic information warfare? What is command? So what is intelligence-based warfare? So you can, from the word itself, you can identify what is intelligence-based warfare, what is electronics warfare, what is hacker warfare. So psychological warfare, they will disturb the emotions of the public or the people. Network, using the online, creating the either it can support or they can oppose to the government or to the people or to this particular some organization. So automatically the people also will think, okay, we have to support or we have to oppose. So either it's a biological warfare, either it can give some virus to affect the society, one country. Then narrative warfare, continuous information disinformation about some topic. It will create this opinion. In human-centric warfare. So finally, we already know warfare. The famous one is cyber warfare, hacking, getting anyone infrastructure, networks, like that. Then next, the recent one is network warfare. So it is to reprogram what are the human mind, like mimicking whatever the human things. So it is the human behavior and communication. Finally, the technology warfare. So what I am proposing, so instead of like CIDRA, we can also, the union, we can also like a hub or a team. So these are specialists or union specialists just as a managers. So each one is different from everyone. You see from cryptology specialist, intelligence specialist, cyber warfare specialist, social injection specialist, threat intelligence. So actually I am proposing these are the members we can create like a hub team. So each members they can check because we are having different warfare. So different warfare specialists we need to form one hybrid warfare team such that they can reduce, they can identify which warfare is affecting the particular country. So these are I am proposing. This may be the proposal of the program priorities. So first one, make the CIDRA hub smarter by using the surveillance of this hybrid warfare, or you can go for observation and objective of this. Then you can identify and share the risk. First identify the risk and share the risk and mitigate the risk or control the risk. Next, build the resilience and facilitate the future. So how we are going, how to identify which are the influence of that every hybrid warfare is we are giving in a color format. First one is red color, yellow color, violet, like so many colors we are giving, finally it is a white color. So what's the red color means? Definitely any one warfare is particularly affecting some country. So this red color means obviously some warfare is there. So these team, according they will identify which warfare they will have. So they will send this to the next group, yellow. The yellow is with the overseer. They will check what we have to do to reduce the risk. Next, they will send to the violet color, warfare specialist. Which specialist is they will ask the suggestion, they will give the suggestion. Actually, everything is like a code. So they have to reduce the risk. This fourth one is fighters. They will try to reduce the risk. Slowly, the risk starts from red color, ends with the white color. So at the end of the white color, the hybrid warfare how much they can reduce, they will reduce. So it is according to the color format. So each color, actually color format is how much the efficiency. White color means 100% that particular threat is removed. Red color is fully we are having that particular is exposed to that particular hybrid warfare. So I am giving each one color their roles and responsibilities. So who is giving the hacking, who is giving the coding, who is specialistic, who is checking everything in each one color, each one team. They will go and they will reduce it. For example, red color. Red colors are the guardians. They will identify any threats. So anyone, for example, in any country, election is going on. So definitely so many comments will come in the social network. So you have to identify which comments are correct, which comments. There are so many things. So they will identify the danger. Then they will check to the yellow color. Yellow color will check the overseer whether we can able to go here. They will slowly send to each color, purple, yellow, like that. Finally, they will reach to the white color. Obviously, the threat is reduced. To red, finally white color, brown, like that. So obviously it is like to monitoring the full African Union and European Union to have safe from online or this hybrid warfare threats. So to check it. So by comparing all the literature review, we are finding tools online. So we are having these 10 types of principles. Definitely, according to this how we are changing, how we are going allocating this Algeria every color, we are going through 10 principles. Cognitive innovation. Here, before itself, we are giving some information. Okay, definitely election is going to happen, so definitely some information falsely will be displayed. Like that, first itself, we have to give some information through the net. So that's only cognitive innovation. Like that, 10 principles I created. So based on this principle, only the coders we can do. So each one, for example, if Algeria is the red color, so first we have to identify which warfare is there. And among this 10 principle, any one principle, actually enter means we have to go for that coding. Okay, actually I didn't start with the coding, but if it is cognitive adaptation or it will be adaptation and refinement. For example, some warfare threats, we have to first adapt. Then we have to define, we have to distract from that effect. So that's why according to the review, I collected, then I am telling these 10 principles we can do to mitigate the risk of hybrid warfare. So second one is zero trust. Fourth one is one-shot strategy. Fifth one is selling script. We have to give that script. Fifth one is dynamic change. Sixth one is resilience and agility. Sound arrogant script. Ninth one is boosted internet. Okay. Final one is fusion application. So based on the different color teams, we are mitigating the different warfare effects. So finally, my point is a little care can make a warfare rare. So we can ask, what is the policy that will answer to all our problems? Instead, whether we are ready to tackle whatever we can, whatever we definitely will do for tackling the problems. So definitely, both the European Union and African Union have to combine together, because every country have to safeguard the people from this false information. So this is my topic. Thank you very much for listening my presentation. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you, Raj, for good presentation, also finishing on time. Who is Nyandwe Sami? We'll be presenting a paper on SADC's intervention in the security crisis in the DRC in light of lessons learned from European Union missions. Excuse me, for some reasons we've shared the presentation. So now we have a paper of the European Union on multilateralism in a new geopolitical era.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. Yes, my paper is the EU and multilateralism in a new geopolitical era, trade as a case study. So my point of departure is that the European Union has always been very supportive of multilateralism and the international legal order. Problem is that this world in which the European Union knew how to play and in which it was comfortable is being challenged. And we have to think only on Russia and the aggression on Ukraine, or we have to think on the Trump administration and the abandonment of many international organizations and the funding to those international organizations, and the lack of interest of complying with international rules, and the multilateral system in general. As multilateralism has been essential for the European Union, and up to now, what I have tried to ask is how the Union is reacting to this challenge of multilateralism by other geopolitical actors. And I have studied these reactions in a double perspective. On the one hand, at the level of discourse, looking into some very interesting speeches of the leaders of the European Union in the later months, particularly in March 2026. Then I have looked into practice in one specific field, which is trade policy by the European Union. And I have been looking practically in the last decade to know how everything is changing, how the trade policy is evolving. So first, at the level of discourse. At the level of discourse, I put my focus on a speech by President of the European Commission, von der Leyen, on March 2026 to EU diplomats who were gathered in Brussels to receive, let's say, guidelines on how to follow and how to do the job in the next version. It was very controversial because President von der Leyen said that we should move towards a more interest-driven strategy. That the old system, the international legal order, have gone, and that it was not going to return, and that the Union needed a new path. That maintaining the old system, trusting too much in the old system, could not be anymore seen as a help, but as a hindrance to our credibility as a geopolitical actor. So, after his speech, there was a lot of reactions on whether this was only an exercise of realism or it was a change, a strategic turn into the EU positioning on multilateralism and the defense of the international legal order. How should we interpret this? My position is that we should not interpret this as a strategic turn, but merely as a change of tone in this speech. In the paper, I give reasons why this is so. Very briefly, I don't think von der Leyen has the power to change, make this strategic term. He has no control over that. It's more the Council, it's more the Member States. The day after, the President of the European Council, Antonio Costa, made a very different discourse, supporting much more multilateralism, that the Union should still be defended, and but to be complacent towards others that disrespect multilateralism. So one thing is to be realistic and knowing that some global actors are certainly changing, challenging this system. And another very different one is to join those actors in this term. My feeling is that in examining these discourses and some actions later on of governments and of the governments of the European Union and also of the European Council and the conclusions that were also adopted in March, and it says that there is only a change of tone, but never a strategic tone. Certainly, we need action. We need to be immobile. We have to react to the changing context, but not abandoning multilateralism and joining those who are challenged. This is at the level of discourse, but then I had a look at practice, and I choose one of the fields in which the European Commission has more competencies, which is trade. Trade is an exclusive competence of the European Commission, of the European Union, sorry, and there the European Commission has a very, very important role. So if I look into what the Union has been doing in the last 10 years, my first point would be that certainly it has promoted a lot of bilateral and interregional trade agreements. It is amazing, more than ever. And very ambitious trade agreements, not only on goods, but including other aspects, including services, including investments, including climate change and labor issues, including arbitrations to solve the conflicts, including some industrial property issues that are connected to trade. So very ambitious. And if we have a look, I mean, it's South Korea in 2010, Colombia, Peru in 2012, we have Central America in 2013, Canada in 2016, Japan in 2018, Singapore in 2019, Mercosur in 2019, as well as Vietnam. We have a modernization of the agreement with Mexico in 2020, and the agreement with the UK, Chile in 2023, New Zealand in 2024, Indonesia in 2025, and in this 2026, India and Australia. So what we can see is that the Union has fostered bilateral trade relationships. Then it goes to bilateral. The second movement that I can see is a renewal of all the European unilateral instruments for trade defense. And here, the work of the European Union is also impressive. More regulations are there. A new system to control foreign direct investment. A new instrument for international public procurement. A modernization and reinforcement of anti-dumping and anti-subsidies mechanisms. The carbon border adjustment mechanism to promote climate change beyond its borders, the deforestation regulation as well with the same purpose, a foreign subsidies regulation, and finally a period of time, practically 5 years. So what is happening here? What is happening is that it was too naive. And it was trusting too much in good faith bankers. It has decided to resort to mechanisms to defend itself. Even if they have to be unilateral, always of course respecting international law, but in order to protect unions' interests in public security, reciprocity, to guarantee level in trade, and also to promote public goods. So when we see this focus on bilateralism, sometimes interregional, and not substance, the Union has a strong interest, of course, on keeping on being a major player in global trade. I think it's good that it fosters these bilateral agreements and interregional agreements. It's needed, absolutely needed, particularly when we see that former allies like the US are now sometimes rivals. Yes, there is a shift as well to use trade defense mechanisms when necessary. And always, I insist, always respecting international trade law. I think the Union still believes, obviously, on open trade. Open trade with focus on climate change, focus on fairness, and is fostering it with all the tools that it has, including, of course, multilateralism. The Union has been extremely active promoting a reform of the WTO. Such as, for instance, cooperation of the willing. And I think this is in the multilateralism. This is possible. So my conclusion is that both from the level of discourse and the level of practice, you can still trust that the Union will firmly support multilateralism and international work. It will be promoting it, it will be reforming it to adjust it to the new situation and the new context, and is clearly in favor of that reform. But if multilateralism takes no progress, because it's blocked, we are seeing, for instance, the WTO, which is blocked, it will not remain passive. It will try to make bilateral agreements, interregional agreements, and certainly will build up, it's already building up a stronger position to defend itself. And also to have more power negotiation in multilateral environments. So this is my interpretation. Which I will be happy to comment on it later on. Thank you. Ask questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gonzalo, for presentation. And the presenters, for the interest of time, they stick to our findings, the challenges, and recommendations. And skip methodology, literature review. So, Nyanga San,
Good afternoon, everybody. Like my French speakers colleague, I apologize for my pronunciation and accent, which are not good in English. So my presentation is subdivided into 6 points. The first one is about the research problem and analytical framework. The second is about the comparison between the security culture of European Union and SADC. The third is about methodology and theoretical analysis. The fourth is about SADC and European Union that appear more structured and generally more coherent. That is the question. If I make a comparison between the SADC and the European Union cultures, security cultures, I can say that my paper is not limited to compare two sets of missions carried out in the DRC. More deeply, it compares focused on strengthening public authority and carrying out lasting security sector reform. Thus, comparing these two actors help us understand not only the difference in results, but also the different views of peace and security that guide their interventions. About the methodology, we used the qualitative and the documentary approach and the comparative approach. About the theory, we used three theories. The first is the hegemonic stability theory. The second is the security community theory. And the last is the regional security. About the architectures of security, in Africa we have the Union African, which have many organs. We can cite the Commission and others organs. In European, we have the main, it is the CSTP, etc., etc. About the interventions of these two organizations in DRC, firstly, SADC intervened in DRC on 1998. This intervention was mainly driven by the need to save Laurent Desire Kabila regime from Rwandan and the Ugandan aggression. In the short term, this intervention could be seen as militarily effective, since it helped prevent the immediate collapse of the Congolese state. Secondly, the SADC intervened in DRC with the mission, the SAMI DRC. More recently, SAMI DRC mission was given the mandate to support the Congolese government in neutralizing armed groups and protecting civilians. However, the realities on the ground quickly revealed the structural weakness of the operation. The deployment remained incomplete, logistical capacity was insufficient.
Financial support, aid, limits, and several operational setbacks damages the mission credibility. In the end, the process of early withdrawal confirmed that the difficulty in maintaining a robust, coherent, and properly support intervention over time. Therefore, rather than representing a strategic turning point, the DRC highlight the continuing weaknesses and the regional intervention model. The European many missions such on
2003, there is another intervention with UPOL and A4. The financial recommends, in light of this comparison, several recommendations emerge. First, it would be necessary to develop a binding regional doctrine for SADC peace operations. Second, there should be a shift from a reactive posture to an anticipatory one in dealing with the regional threats. In addition, the creation of a stable mechanism for collective financing appears essential. The role of key states in mission leadership should also be strengthened. Finally, territorial security should be more closely linked with institutional reform, because lasting peace in the DRC cannot be ensured by military presence alone. It requires an element between political vision, regional capacity, and the state reconstruction. In conclusion, the paper highlights a fundamental difference between two models of regional intervention. SADC acts mainly within a logic of immediate state preservation, while of institutional reconstruction. Yet the persistence of the Congolese crisis shows that no lasting peace can be achieved if territorial defense is not accompanied by a real strengthening of a public authority, security, governance, and institutional capacity. This is why the future of African intervention in the DRC will depend based on the simple willingness to intervene, that on the ability to plan collectively, finance sustainable, and the reform structurally. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mani, for the Asani, sorry, for the presentation and also finishing on time. I'm pushing the visual paper at session because of the hurdle associated with the digital technology. So pardon?
I should just complement to the presentation of Mustafa.
Okay, so
I can speak obviously, but I don't have presentation, so please just
okay.
Oh, you want to, oh, we can run it now. Okay. Mm-hmm. I don't see anything here.
Hello, Mustafa, can you share your paper? Hello?
Mustafa.
Mustafa. Okay, so you are given 10 minutes to run us through your paper. You're welcome. And kindly blow the screen, I mean the slides. Thank you.
We focus on the strong dependency on the US dollar and on the idea of creating a simple bilateral clearing system. Our talk explain why the Djibouti-Ethiopia corridor still use the US dollar for payments and propose a practical bilateral solution to regional to propose, let's say, regional financial cooperation. We start with the general problem, and we then give the historical background. We then look at the current situation, present significant concepts, and show our main risks. And finally, we add regional or extend to place the study in a broader context. So, Djibouti-Ethiopian corridors, all know, shows strong logistical integration. It connects ports, railway, and transport to make trade easier. Ethiopia depends on Djibouti for almost all its imports and exports, and Djibouti works mainly as a port, railway, logistic hub for Ethiopian economy. But even with this strong physical connection, one big problem remains. The two countries do not use compatible currency for cross-border payments. Most payments are made in US dollar, which makes transaction harder and creates extra cost or exchange rate fees for local businesses. So this situation shows the need to explore single regional maritime solutions or a compensation system to improve economic efficiency and let's say cooperation between the two countries. So the question is that trade and transport are highly integrated, but currency and settlement are not. The key question is why has dollar became the default settlement currency, and what credible institutional alternative could work with this. For that, let's explain the history context. In 1949, Djibouti fixed its currency to the US dollar. Monetary reform in French Somaliland, which was called French Somaliland. So, the French government fixed Djibouti franc to the US dollar. The State Bank of Ethiopia, was afraid that export revenues in dollars, especially those coming from the American markets, would leave the country and go to the dollar zone, mainly to Djibouti. And this why the State Bank of Ethiopia, the Ethiopian government, introduced very strict control. Exchange control being no freedom between the two countries. And Ethiopia turned to the port of Assad, especially after Eritrea was integrated in 1952. And between 1949 and 1952, Ethiopia set an official exchange rate that did not match real market conditions. This created economic tension. Payments and transfers were limited and often delayed, especially for railway and train operation. Ethiopia used exchange control as a political and economic tool, which pushed it to bypass Djibouti, especially after Eritrea was integrated in 1952. But in 1993, after Eritrea became independent, Ethiopia became the largest country by population in the world. In 1997, Eritrea introduced the currency, the metro, and demand US dollar payment instead of Ethiopian bill, creating a crisis and forcing Ethiopia to move all its transit to Djibouti. And since the late 90s, Djibouti's role has grown because its ports and service are paid in dollar, foreign currency, not foreign currency. This shows how monetary growth shaped the corridor over time. Today, Djibouti provides imports and logistic service, while Ethiopia provides demand, but faces sometimes shortage for foreign currency. Then we can say that the US dollar has replaced direct trust between the two countries and has become the currency of the corridor. So the corridor becomes vulnerable because payment stability depends on external currency conditions. Ethiopia often lacks foreign currency, which creates payment delay and long queue. Djibouti and firm are forced to wait and to finance these delays, which blocks their working capital and increases their credit cost. This creates a systemic risk. Ethiopia foreign exchange shortage affects all actors in the corridor. Payment also depend on the foreign currency that either country controls. So currency flows stay fragmented, even when goods move smoothly. So let's really again say that the main problem of the current system, Ethiopia lacks foreign currency, which creates long payment delays and queue. Djibouti and first must wait 60 or 90 days and finalize the deal. And bank fees sometimes can reach up 20%. This makes the whole corridor vulnerable because payments depend on currency that neither country controls. It's very important. So our framework shows that why clearing is important as a trust institution in international trade. My colleague, Professor Lewis, will come to explain this after. But Anderson explained that under exchange restriction, international payment follow two rules: the waiting principle, administrative delays, and financing principle. Creditors must carry these delays. A bilateral clearing system that we are proposing lets the two two central banks settle directly, reducing the need of strong foreign currency. On the other side, you have George C.N., who says money or currency is an institutional form of trust. Today, this trust is created to the US dollar, but clearly tries to rebuild bilateral trust from their from clear roots and shared payments. And fashion the transaction was payments. So we propose bilateral credit architecture. This solution makes cross-border payments easier by using local currency while keeping each country's monetary sovereignty. It's a bilateral clearing system that links the two central banks, RTGS system, CIDRA in Djibouti, and EATS in Ethiopia. We just need really to link those RTGS systems. Reciprocal euro accounts allow fast settlement while permitting clearing, let's say about once a month, to save foreign currency, reduce the need for US dollar and lower intermediation costs. This model makes trade trade flows smoother. How it works? Here, the process starts when the token importer makes payments in bill through the domestic banking system. The National Bank of Ethiopia then records the payments and credits the naira accounts, euro accounts, at the Central Bank of Djibouti. The Djibouti Central Bank then credits the Djiboutian exporter Djibouti franc. The key point is that two central banks periodically clear and settle the remaining balances according to the agreed rules. About once a month, to say again, foreign currency with a fixed exchange rate. So the main idea is final settlement through an interconnected RTGS system involving long shades of USD dollar for a certain bank. This makes cross-border transactions simpler and safer. But the hard part, this point shows that managing a common exchange rate is difficult. The idea is to use a Djibouti franc, Ethiopian birr rates managed by both countries for clearing. A simple rule could use inflation, market signal, even parallel markets, and basic macro data with regular updates, of course. The goal is to keep the rate credible and predictable, reduce arbitrage, and make trade more stable while avoiding past mistakes. And if this works, if bilateral clearing works, it can become a model for a regional system with two levels. National currencies stay the same, and the shared settlement unit is used only for cross-border payments. The key, the de-dollarization here is the institutional project. Now we have to learn tomorrow, remotely we come, building trust this two tiers level with Professor Nicola Merci. System, we have the reference here. And so just for conclude, after Ethiopia became landlocked, Djibouti landlocked country, the Djibouti corridor became essential. Yet payments still rely on US dollar because bilateral monetary cooperation remains incomplete. This is really a trust and settlement problem, not just a currency choice. The 1949 episode shows how state control and misaligned parties can disrupt payment and redirect trade. The bilateral credit system, like RTGS link, other accounts, and jointly governed exchange rate rule, would calculate and cost and strengthen the corridor and offer a regional model that can be adapted. Thank you for your attention. And I think you will leave the question for my colleague Nikolai, Professor Aros.
Thank you, Mustafa, for the presentation. And so tomorrow, this is a huge research. In fact, this model of clearing could be applied for different zones. For example, for the zone CFA, I speak tomorrow on this for the country of Sahel, etc. So this is a very, I can say, historically workable system. It was used by European Payment Union between 50 and 58. Now it's used by BRICS, so I can speak more on this because I don't like to lose the time. But the presentation of Mustafa was clear, and the basic idea is that we can organize common currency in a way to shape independence of Africa in different configuration. We can speak more about this. Thank you.
Hello, good evening. Hello.
Hello.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Hello.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Good evening.
Good evening, how are you?
We are all right.
Yes, my name is Abubakar from Nigeria.
Sorry, Abubakar, please wait. Wait a little bit.
Okay.
Have you noted your session? Your session is
tomorrow.
Your session is not this one. What's the title of the paper? Artificial Intelligence, right?
No, an appraisal of Nigeria's institutional and legal framework for the protection of small farmers' rights.
You should hold and then come back in box for me because it's currently not in this session, and then we will sort it out. This is room A, session 2.
No, it's room A, session 4 tomorrow.
Now it has to be presented tomorrow, not today.
Okay, because I know some conferences sometimes they do allow people to present it others.
Then we are not allowing it here, and please observe the schedule for tomorrow.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you very much.
Yes, I will be participating today. I'll be following the discussion.
So let's go back to inbox. You can come to my inbox, my WhatsApp number, and then we'll discuss this so that we allow the conference to proceed.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
Mahuyu Jobak, are you online? Room A, session 2. Mahuyu Jobak. Is Asumani around? Asumani yuko? Asumani Aganze. Asumani Aganze.
Hello, good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, sir.
Hello, Babatunde.
Yes, sir.
Which is your session?
Good afternoon, sir. Yes, my session is the morning session.
Which room?
Morning session, 11 to 13.
Recording in progress.
I was supposed to present between 15 to 12:30. Are you listening? Are you here? Can you hear me, please?
I'm checking which room session? Which room? Is it room A, B, or C?
Room? Yes, I was slated for room A. Room A, 12:15 to 12:30. But when I couldn't find anybody in the room, they allowed me to present in room B.
So you have presented already in room B, right?
Yes, I presented in room B.
You have already presented?
Yes, sir. The title of my paper is Climate Change and Agricultural Output Growth in Sub-Saharan Africa.
So if you have already presented in room B, then that is already recorded.
All right, no problem, sir. No, just to inform you. Just to inform you, sir.
Okay, we thank you for that.
Thank you very much, sir.
Hello. So we are done with the presentations and it's time for general questions. If you have any burning question, you can ask. Questions, comments. Okay, so since we don't have questions, comments, then let's clap for the presenters, both online and those who are here. And also I would like to thank the presenters who were here physically, and also those who have presented their papers online. So thank you very much. And, let's close our session. Any administrative issues? Maybe.
Hello. Hello. Hello.
Yes, Mwambusa?
Okay. I'm online. I'm ready.
Just a minute, please.
Okay.
We will have to reorganize this paper for tomorrow because the session here is already closed by the chair. And then I'll come back in box for you and tell you exactly tomorrow at what time you are going to present.
It means that I must present tomorrow.
I will come back in box and discuss this with you in person.
Thank you.
But otherwise, as said by the chair, we thank our online participants. I know the connections were not that bright for today, but we are going to ensure that tomorrow we are going to have a smooth transition. Otherwise,
yes, tomorrow.
Recording stopped.
But I have another communication, another presentation tomorrow in the afternoon. It means that I have two papers.
And that's why I'm saying we'll come back in box for you and discuss how we sort that out.
All right.
Yes, the secretariat will come back to you. So as for the other members, we thank you for the participation as said by the chair of the session. And for tomorrow...
I'm sorry. Hello. Hello.
Oh, hello.
Hello. Please, I just want to make an inquiry.
So for tomorrow, we are going to have a session, not in this building, but we are going to have a session in the administration block. So if you are coming by Bolt or tax, ask them to drop you at the administration block. And in Swahili, we say at Utawala. And then our ushers, they will be wearing a black t-shirt tomorrow. They will be around to take you to rooms A, B, and C. And we're also expecting to close after lunch, where we will issue certificates and also some tokens for the universities that are presented physically in this conference. And therefore, having that said, let's meet tomorrow. Thank you. It has been a long day, but let's hope tomorrow it will be much shorter so that you also have time to look around Dar es Salaam. Asanteni sana na karibuni.